Welcome to Season 2, Episode 12, Family Appreciation Day. I don't got a lot to say about this in the intro, other than there will be no bad friend point, but I will call out that Apple Bloom isn't the best in terms of her thoughts and feelings towards her granny, for at least a little bit, but it's not anything severe. She doesn't lash out or do anything horrific, so I don't think it's worth giving her another point. But yeah, not a lot for me to say about this one. Let's just get into it. We join Applejack and Apple Bloom being woken up by a strange clanging in the middle of the night. Also, Apple Bloom, you don't normally wear a nighttime bonnet. At least we've never seen it, and probably never will again. Though I've been wrong plenty of times about those type of assertions, but screw it if I'm determined just to be wrong all the time. Turns out it's Granny Smith running around outside naked while wearing pots and yelling about timberwolves howling. Man, Granny Smith was characterized super weird in these early seasons. But despite the apples being woken up by some craziness, they're actually happy as Granny Smith announces that the Zap Apples are coming. Oh, hey, we're at the Zap Apple episode already. Thought this was farther in the series. Oh well. So not sure if it's fall and the trees have lost their leaves, but based on all the other foliage we've already seen, I doubt it. So these are probably specifically Zap Apple trees. I think the show will tell me this episode, or at least I hope so, but we never really see this specific orchard in their farm and like the larger shots of it, so I'm not entirely sure. Apparently Apple Bloom is going to be taught how to make Zap Apples, or she's just going to actively help make them for the first time. It might also not even be the first time. It's kind of hard to tell really. She's excited about it, so I think this is her first time making them with Granny Smith, but she's like seen them make it in the past or something. This is potentially the worst and least effective broom ever depicted in any TV show ever. So Zap Apples are very confusing from, well, basically every perspective. They seem to be magical in nature, but they're also born from lightning striking a tree, so it's kind of a mix of maybe Earth Pony magic and Pegasus magic? Maybe some kind of fusion of them? I don't know how much I'm going to go into the Zap Apple signs and progression, but I guess that's sort of what the episode's about. So it starts with the leaves appearing from the lightning. We're then quickly joined by Filthy Rich and of course Diamond Tiara. Given how decently respectable we're going to see Filthy being, it's a wonder how Diamond Tiara came out this way, because, you know, we don't see her mother for a long while, and that'll answer a lot of questions. Granny Smith has this weird nonsensical ritual she does for Zap Apple, cooking? Harvest? I don't remember what the ritual is for, but regardless, it's going to be used to upset Apple Bloom. Based on what we get explained later on, this is supposed to, like, make the apples taste better, or the jam taste better. I don't know. She says she figured all this out through trial and error and just figuring it out over the course of, like, 90 to 100 years. I don't actually know how long it's been since the founding of Ponyville, effectively, but I don't even know how you would even trial this to find out. I think Granny Smith might just be mad from the get-go. Like, she didn't become senile or anything. This is just her. While Diamond Tiara is trying to gaslight Apple Bloom into hating her grandma, Filthy is being entertained by Granny Smith's strange behavior. Granny Smith also somehow managed to change out of her bunny suit in literal seconds, as this pan overshot happened in seconds, despite constantly being shown to be decrepit throughout the series. I am also going to clarify now that I am aware that a lot of these are jokes, especially for this episode, but I don't care. Diamond Tiara calling out Granny Smith on forgetting things like that's not just a thing everyone does is the exact brat energy I expect from her. Doesn't make me not want to dropkick her into the stratosphere, but hey, she's doing what she's supposed to. Also, side note, Diamond Tiara is giving some really, really good expression work throughout this entire sequence. I'm not going to be able to fully show it, but it's real good. As much as I do think Filthy isn't that bad of a pony, he does smack the cauldron on Granny Smith's head with a paddle, which is pretty messed up, but given her hearing issues, she probably barely even noticed, to be fair. Still rude. Anyway, Apple Bloom is now really self-conscious about Granny Smith's eccentricities and doesn't want to be seen in public with her thanks to Diamond Tiara's manipulation. This is also the episode where Granny Smith is infinitely more excitable and energetic compared to the more decrepit, I hesitate to call it characterization, that she had in previous appearances. This more goofy nature is more in line with what we'll be seeing with her going forward. Customer service pony. I see you. More gross-out humor that I'm not a fan of, as Apple Bloom has to carry Granny Smith's dentures. Hiding immediately upon seeing another person, or in this case Pony, is called trauma, and Apple Bloom needs help. Also, contextually, it could just be embarrassment, but she's also afraid, so it's give or take. Apple Bloom tries to get Granny Smith to stop being so quote-unquote silly, as she puts it, since she doesn't want the bullies duo to notice her. Granny Smith doesn't seem to have any self-awareness, or she simply has supreme confidence. Kinda hard to tell with her sometimes. The bully duo maintain a friendly facade with Granny Smith, so odds are Granny just thinks they're Apple Bloom's little Philly friends. I wonder if Apple Bloom never talked about them to Granny. Applejack, I think, knows a bit, because I remember Apple Bloom talking about her problems with AJ several times before. Not to mention that Applejack was also at the Quinceañera, so she saw a lot of the BS that was going on firsthand. Strange how Granny's been seemingly kept in the dark about these issues, or it's another haha old person joke with her memory. Granny randomly comments on how when she was young, ponies didn't come quote-unquote that purty. Is this supposed to be like a commentary on the youth engaging in more beauty practices these days or something? Or am I overthinking this horribly? Despite my takes and opinions on Applejack and Rarity's dichotomy, I'm more practical than beauty focused, so I'm not entirely sure. This comment from the show just felt strange, and I was compelled to bring it up. We then transition into Bring Your Parent to School Day, or whatever they're calling it in this episode. I think it's like Family Appreciation Day or something. You know, the title. Filthy Rich is here giving some kind of finance speech that everyone seems to hate or find boring, except for Twist. She seems enthralled. Maybe she wants to learn finance for her future confectionery work. She does give off nerd energy a lot, so she might as well just like math. Also, this guy's new to the class. Cookie Kid, I shall call him for now. And of course, Diamond Tiara loves hearing about how Filthy took over the markets to earn his fortune. Her opinion and love of her dad is pretty cute, despite her behavior and her mother. Good news, everyone! They actually remembered the CMC are the only blank flanks, and they gave these two filler ponies cutie marks. Cookie Kid has a cooking mark, not really that surprising, and this filly, who's been used in a lot of the background shots for CMC episodes, has been given a flower. Also, from this shot, it kind of seems like Twist has a crush on Filthy. I can't actually remember what it's called when a kid has like a, I can't even think of what to call it. It's like when the kids get that crush that they like get over very quickly. It's like puppy love type of deal, but that's not what it's called. I don't know. Also, whoever drew this picture of Celestia did a phenomenal job. God damn. So yeah, this is the episode title. The school is having a family appreciation day every so often, and this was Diamond Tiara's day. This is the conflict with Apple Bloom, where she's gonna have to bring in Granny Smith. Why does she quote-unquote have to? Well, we're getting to that. Diamond Tiara tells Cheerilee that Granny Smith isn't working on the harvest next family appreciation day, which convinces Cheerilee to announce that Granny Smith will be perfect. So Apple Bloom's just kind of locked in as Cheerilee once again ignores her students' stress and struggles. That being said, this one should be overcome instead of aided. You generally shouldn't be ashamed of family that are a bit strange if they're not harmful. Also, I completely missed this on my first watch through, but they just forgot Twist's mark. How did I miss that? Applejack mentions that she can't take a break to help Apple Bloom as Zap Apples disappear exactly 5 days after they appear, meaning they have limited time to harvest. And this is actually just wrong. This is the way they worded it made it sound like this, but I realized the interpretation here is the first sign appears on the first day, and then the 5th day is the final sign where the apples appear, and you can only harvest them on that 5th day. So you only actually have 1 day to do it. The episode did not make that perfectly clear until later on in the episode, so I got a little confused here. I still don't fully understand Zap Apples, to be honest. Granny Smith runs over, announcing the 3rd sign of Zap Apples being a bunch of crows or ravens forming a giant apple in the sky. Sure. Okay. Anyway, after some brief research, ravens have a bushier amount of hair covering their face and beak, and given the animators specifically drew extra hair in that area, I'm gonna assume these are ravens, not crows. So good detailing if that's correct. The Zap Apples start blooming as flowers. Okay, alright, yeah. I don't even have a guess or hypothetical as to why this is happening. I'm just going along for the ride with the Zap Apples. Random thing with no bearing on anything that's been going on. But Applejack and Big Mac both have green eyes, while Apple Bloom inherited Granny Smith's orange. I forgot their parents' eye color, but we'll see them in the future eventually. I don't think they appear in this episode, though. I don't recall there being a watchtower as part of the CMC hideout, but apparently there is one. It looks precarious, but also dope as hell. Apple Bloom flexes her linguistic skills by saying every synonym for embarrassed there is, which gives us the great Scootaloo joke of, "What are you, a dictionary?" Still hard to translate the comedy of the show, but the setup and delivery were both really solid for this one. Side note, this game of tic-tac-toe is a war crime, and I'm insulted just by looking at it. Simultaneously, a good and strangely bad detail is how the Zap Apple flowers appear in the trees in the background here, but only on the first 2 trees, and the rest look like normal autumn leaves, despite the fact that we've seen nothing but green leaves in other places of the farm. So there should be apples on them, and they should be green. It's just weird. Not entirely sure what they were going for, but I do like the Zap Apple flowers being there as details, which tells us that their treehouse is set up in the Zap Apple area, which doesn't sound right, but whatever. Great visual gag of Scootaloo getting an idea, but instead of the classic light bulb lighting up, she jumps into a lantern and that lights up. It's a fun subversion of a classic gag. They randomly cut to Granny Smith doing more shenanigans, but immediately cut away, and no one was watching, and the scene had no bearing or impact on the story, so it was just sort of like a cutaway gag, which felt out of place. I mean, it was funny, just strange. Anyway, Apple Bloom and the other CMC are gonna try to trick Granny. Granny Smith either sees through their deception immediately, or is just terrible at determining health, and she leaves. The 4th sign is a meteor shower, and the flower explodes, so the center becomes an apple. So apparently these are specifically quote-unquote Zap Apple trees. So my comments earlier about the time of year is irrelevant. That being said, the apples just have these special trees on their farm that they only harvest once a year? Do they require any maintenance or something? Well, regardless, Apple Bloom talks about how Zap Apple trees are very different and applying standard harvest rules to them could go wrong, as the other CMC members want to harvest early, so she specifically calls the trees magic, hence their nebulous nature, which upsets me even more. Are they Earth magic? Pegasus magic? Who knows? Considering how electric they are, maybe a mix. Curse you, nebulous magic! I'm just gonna make my headcanon that it's a mix of magic. Sweetie Belle tries to buck the apples down and gets electrocuted and dies. Oof. They then try to pick the apples, but the apples are bolted to the tree effectively. Also, Sweetie Belle somehow pulls the entire tree down, and I know it's just a gag, but curse you, inconsistent strength. Cheerilee gets baited to the farm by the CMC to speak with quote-unquote Granny Smith. Also, this is being framed as the apple's house, but I thought this was the barn. Am I crazy? I need to check this again. Okay, yeah, I am crazy. They're just slightly similar. Also, Cheerilee is about to look in the window, but these windows are completely different. A Weekend at Bernie's reference in MLP is wild. I mean, we already had a Big Lebowski reference, but Weekend at Bernie's feels way more out of left field. And yeah, this window is nothing like the previous one. The previous ones had like the T shape facing downward. Cheerilee somehow buys all this nonsense, even though she could very likely see Apple Bloom easily. Is Cheerilee done the most dirty of any backgrounder? Feels like her intelligence and skill is constantly being called into question, other than by me, of course, like just the show in general. Scootaloo wakes up Granny Smith by smashing her into the ceiling, then tries to pull her out of the front lawn away from Cheerilee, while Granny Smith explains that she's definitely coming to Family Appreciation Day. Cheerilee's honestly just having a rough day, to be honest. Also, I'm gonna pay extra close attention in the Valentine's Day episode with Cheerilee, because I want to see her characterization a lot more. A storm followed by a rainbow appears to be the final sign. As for all, I think, 5 signs, it starts with the lightning striking the trees, and then I think it's the crows making the sign, then there's the meteor shower, and then I think this, so I think there's 4 signs in total. I might be missing one. I feel like there's supposed to be 5, and I'm just forgetting one of them, but I think those are the 4 signs. And thus, the Zap Apples finally get their rainbow color and appear to be ready for plucking. Twist is just arriving to class, but Cheerilee is already starting. Is the class just open? Can any Philly or Colt just go in at specified times? Because Cheerilee doesn't comment or seem to care at all about attendance. Huh. I'm not sure why Sweetie Belle looks so surprised at the situation, and also no one buys any of this BS, which again makes Cheerilee look bad that she is buying it. I'm starting to feel like this is slowly becoming a Cheerilee slander video, and I did not mean for it to be like that. After tricking Granny Smith to head to the train to meet their uncle in a long-distant area, turns out the uncle was surreptitiously also visiting them at the same time, so they meet up early. Talk about coincidences. Alright, I failed to mention that the CMC tricked Granny Smith into almost leaving town to visit a family member. Completely slipped my mind to mention that. So yeah, this is the retcon episode where they mention how Granny Smith was part of the founding of Ponyville as a filly, despite saying Ponyville is multiple centuries old in Winter Wrap-Up. This does make Granny Smith more interesting as a character, but also makes Ponyville way younger of a village than we expected, and with all of the traditions they seem to have, it's a little strange, but you know, better Granny Smith, slightly worse lore consistency and intrigue. I guess it's a fine trade-off. It depends on what you're into. I tend to personally prefer more world lore than character lore, but it works out fine. I'd say this is a more net overall positive for the show than negative. Canterlot 100 years ago was basically the exact same, despite there being extreme settler vibes going on. I wonder how developed the rest of Equestria was at this point. There's a lot of discrepancy in architecture and technology across various locations throughout the entire show, but right here is where it's forefront for the moment. Canterlot seems to have been standing since Celestia and Luna's ascension at the very least, and the fact that it has basically not changed at all while other ponies are still living in like early American settler times is very strange to me. I say it hasn't changed at all. The fashion of the ponies that inhabit it has changed, but the architecture and layout hasn't really changed at all. Celestia looking the exact same is fairly obvious and we kind of expected it, but even the Royal Guard always looked the same. There's gotta be some form of like nepotism or something going on here. Only ponies from specific families must be allowed to join. Later seasons have more varied guard designs, but early on here this is just weird. So this is Granny Smith's dad and the other Apple's great-grandfather. Also, Celestia stopped to look at his seed collection, which simultaneously feels out of and in character for her. We don't know a lot about Celestia's interests aside from magic, cooking, and theater, which this isn't any of those, but we know that she finds her job exhausting and would likely take any distraction to break up the melancholy. Based on her reaction to Papa Apple kissing Celestia's hoof, this is probably Granny Smith's mom, aka Mama Apple, and the Apple's great-grandma. Also, apparently kissing hooves was normal 80 plus years ago still, and only recently died out from Celestia's concerned reaction to Rarity doing it, though that might have been because of Rarity's frantic nature that she was displaying, and more just manicness, whereas this is more of a calm, respectful thank you. Also, since I'm going to forget to mention it later, Celestia gave them the land for Ponyville. That should have been obvious, and they're going to go settle that. Granny Smith decided to enter the Everfree Forest because they were running low on food after their settlement, and she knew things lived there, so there had to be food for them. This is a really strong display of her survivalist mentality that she had back when she was younger. She doesn't really have that much now, but it's good characterization for young Granny, at least. Oh, okay, so the Zap Apple trees originated in the Everfree Forest? The forest which is known for being unnaturally natural. The Everfree Forest is both the most magical, but also the most natural location in the show. It's so diverse of a climate, makes me wonder what led to it being like this. Is it simply a large concentration of magic in one place? Did discord cause permanent damage somehow? The castle of the twin sisters is here, so I imagine other people already know either from the comics or something later that I don't recall, or maybe it's just been left a mystery on purpose because that's kind of the point. Either way, I'm mostly just musing to myself, but my point with the whole castle thing is maybe Celestia and Luna did something, I don't know. Maybe there was a catastrophe, or maybe discord like attacked the castle they were at. I don't know. There's a bunch of things we could theorize about, at least I could. I'm just gonna move on. I think this is the first direct appearance of Timberwolves. We've heard them howling, and we've heard people talk about them, but I think this is the first time we get to see their design, which is neat. Apparently, to scare off the wolves, she just banged pots together, which probably explains the beginning of the episode with her wearing a bunch of pots in the middle of the night, clanking them around. Granny Smith was also the one to directly plant the Zap Apple trees herself, with her dad, apparently. And the trees grew literally instantly. They also do have leaves normally, so maybe the Zap Apple life cycle is off kilter with most of the trees, or they wilt way earlier since we saw some autumn colored trees in the background. So maybe it wilts in later, like in summer instead of in fall. I don't know why they didn't have leaves at the beginning. Okay, so remember that scene I said served basically no purpose? It actually does. Granny Smith explains how all the weird eccentric crap she's doing was all stuff she scientifically proved and determined created the best Zap Apple jam possible. How? Magic, I guess. The apples are basically sentient or something, which makes it even weirder. We have a reused Daisy and Berry with older timey outfits and styles, as well as a golden harvest back there. But most importantly, Bonbon 61. This here is apparently stinking rich, which would be Diamond Tiara's great-grandfather. The train was apparently one of the first things put into the town, given the lack of buildings around the area, and it was likely Celestia just being like, alright, you made your town, we'll connect you to the train network or whatever. That's probably what happened. Contrary to how Filthy Rich put everyone to sleep, everyone seems completely enthralled by Granny Smith. This story also explains why Filthy tends to treat the apples so well, as his family wouldn't be as rich as they are without him. Apple Bloom also explains the same thing I just said to Diamond Tiara as a means of gotchaing her for talking bad about Granny Smith. Oh look, Cheerily finally disapproves of something Diamond Tiara says or does, and it's when she calls Granny Smith kooky, which as far as I'm aware, and according to Google, isn't really a negative thing, so not entirely sure what the problem is here. I guess it's just intent? But Diamond Tiara has had nothing but horrible intentions, so that's not too shocking. Apple Bloom gets over her embarrassment and gives her Granny some love. Adorable. She also finally gets to make Zap Apple Jam with her like she wanted at the very beginning of the episode. I might have also forgot to mention that as well, as she's always wanted to make it with Granny. I'm kind of out of it and feel like I've been even more hectic and confusing than usual. Hopefully it's not too rough. Bonbon 62. Also, these two ponies have really unique and cool designs and are unfortunately copy and pasted farther in the line in the shot, but they're still new, which is cool. Apple Bloom once again remarks how she loves her Granny and that Granny Smith is super special and awesome, which she laments she forgot that for a bit, but it gets forgiven by Granny Smith. As she mentions, she forgets stuff all the time and it's not worth getting worked up over. No letter to Celestia this episode. That's basically our lesson. Don't let embarrassment or sadness make you forget that you truly love someone, or that you love someone important to you, you know, that type of deal. Filthy found out about Diamond Tiara's shenanigans and punishes her by making her do all of the Granny Smith rituals, which is a fantastic punishment and proof of what I mentioned about Filthy liking or at least respecting the apples. Anyway, outro. And that was Season 2, Episode 12, Family Appreciation Day. Again, I don't really have a lot to say about it. I feel like I can't gather my thoughts properly right now, but it's a decent enough episode. I don't have any major negatives about it. I don't have any major positives about it. It has the retcon in it, but I think the retcon is generally better for the story. I think we're just going to give this one a 6. It's a solid episode with no major ups or downs. So yeah, see ya.